Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for today as we present the Power of Community Connection, Advancing Your Career with our honored guest, Brian Smith. My name is Tima Khan. I am a member of the CATS team, Career Advising and Transition Services at the McGill School of Continuing Studies. Before we get started, we would like to mark the event with a land acknowledgement video. We encourage you all to think about the Indigenous lands in which you reside and to find out more about the Indigenous groups that came before us. If you'd like to find out more, we encourage you to consult the online resource, www.native-land.ca. That's www.native-land.ca. We'll also post that in the chat box, so please take a moment to peruse the site. So to maximize and enhance your experience with us today, I'd like to go over a few tips. As I do, please feel free to use the chat box and let us know where you're tuning in from and what sparked your interest in attending our session. So let us know your why for tonight. So to make sure we have a great experience, I want to make sure that you all understand that this event will be live streamed. Embracing the diversity of thought and perspectives are always a great match when you come into meeting rooms like today. As always, this is a virtual platform, which means it's probably in our best interest to stay muted until the end of the presentation, in which we have a Q&A session. That means you can unmute, talk about anything that interests you in the moment, and let us hear your questions. But if there's a moment where you're like, I really have something I want to share with you, please populate the chat box and let us know your questions or comments. And of course, this is participatory and experiential, so please give us, emojis like hearts if you like, or applause. I'm sure that both Osman and Brian would really appreciate that, and any other emojis that you feel entitled to share with us. So I'm going to take a moment to look at the chat box and see if any of you had a chance to let us know where you're from and what interested you today. So Josephine answered, my want was to better understand the community for the purposes of service, career, and personal growth. And you're from Montreal like us, so that's great. Nice to see you here, Josephine. I'll give you a minute or so that more people can add in their opinions in the box. Hi, Rosalia. Okay, I'll give you one more second or so, and then I'll continue on with the presentation. Oh, we have David from Guyana. Nice to, I feel like I wish I was with you right now in the warm weather, unlike Montreal. Another from Montreal. Hi, Savannah. Anthony wants to learn how to build my career through connection. Also from Guyana. Nice. Stephanie, I'm from Montreal. I'm interested in inclusivity in education. That's a really admirable goal. Right, I think the chat box is slowing down. So I'm just going to, one more person just popped in. I'm Alasana from Gambia. Nice to meet you, Alasana. I don't know if I'm seeing everyone, but I'll try my best to answer. I'll do one more and then we'll start with the presentation. Hi, nice to meet everyone. I'm from Montreal. This is Aliona, and she wants to learn about community. And then Shuli is also from here, and she wants to learn about the speaker experiences, and she loves learning from other people. We have someone from Berlin. That's a diverse array of groups. I'm wishing I could travel right now, so thank you for sharing that information with us. So today's event will dive into Brian's wealth of experiences as he guides us through some of the defining career moments here, as well as the power of community and connection that have shaped him, as well as the contributions he's made and the social impact overall. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our moderator, Osman Omer, the president of Macy's, the McGill Association of Continuing Education Students, which is the official student association at the School of Continuing Studies. In addition to being the president at Macy, Osman is currently completing a certificate in public administration and governments at our school. He has extensive experience in policy development, strategic communications, diplomacy, and public affairs. He's an active member of the McGill community and beyond, and is passionate about equity, diversity, and inclusion, sustainability, mental health, and building bridges with community stakeholders. So, dear audience, please help me in welcoming Osman Omer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tima, for the introduction. I do have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker today, Brian Smith. Brian is a social entrepreneur and community activist who has been passionate about telling stories on film. He has over 20 years of experience working with various organizations, the non-profit sector, with a particular focus on financial literacy and economic empowerment. Last but not least, Brian is currently the Vice President of the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education, CFEE. Brian, thank you so much for accepting this invitation, and thank you so much for being with us here today, willing to share your story with us, with these great people that we have.
Thank you very much, Osman. It's great. A lot of energy here today. Thank you and McGill University for inviting me to come and share my story, my experiences as a man here, Black man here living in Montreal. And I hope everybody here today, we could share our experiences so that we can grow and learn from each other.
Certainly. But Brian, before we indulge into our discussion, and I would like to highlight that this webinar is a part of series of fruitful events and programs that organized by McGill University in celebration of Black History Month. So for further information about the upcoming events, please do follow our pages shown in the chat bar below. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we will be focusing on two themes. The first theme is about career introduction about Brian, and the second theme is about the importance of power of community and connection in our modern world. So Brian, let's dive in together, starting from the first theme, which is your career introduction. You are a social entrepreneur, community activist, event producer, and the Vice President for the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education, CFEE.
Yes.
Could you please tell us a bit more about your career trajectory and how you landed in all these spaces and fields? It seemed really interesting.
Well, for me, I'll say this, where everything all started as growing up here in Montreal. I went to West Hill High School. I don't think it actually even exists anymore. I think now it's called Royal Vale High School. And I was always into sports. So played football, baseball, basketball. Sports in itself, team sports allowed me to develop some discipline. So moving on, I was fortunate enough to get a full scholarship to Boston University to study business and sociology. And unfortunately, in my third year, I got injured. I injured my knee and my football career was over. From there now, I found myself, you know what, I have all this energy, all this, excitement. I'm here in Boston. I started to give back to community organizations. Actually, for me, it was actually at another university, Northeastern University, at the Paul Robeson Institute. And I used to mentor young kids there on Saturdays. And I think for me, it actually struck a match, or a light went off in my mind to see how I could have an effect on others, because here I was mentoring these young boys, in elementary school, and they looked up to me as a football player, someone who's actually in university, and we were like, oh wow, we were like treated like gods to them. But I said, you know what? These kids who were living in the inner city of Boston had no real motivation or things like, you know what, going to university was something which is out of their reach. So it struck a match in me to say, Brian, you need to start giving back. You start to need to share your knowledge and the disciplines and all of the things that came from me that sports offered me. I started to give it back to these young kids, and we'd take them out and explore, show them that their lives is, not just, the street corner there in Boston and things like that. So, and I brought that back to me, once I graduated, and I started to get involved with community organizations. The first one was actually the Jamaica Association of Montreal. And here I am, as I said, a university graduate, not knowing, you figure that, I'm going to go to university. Okay, there's going to be this great job, this big job, big office desk. And that wasn't my reality. I came back to Montreal. The doors weren't open for me. I started working with the Jamaica Association and started to build my community involvement, my career, learning about what it is to work in a community organization. And I started to pick the minds of the mentors, the older people who are there, because something for me that is very, very important is that I've never been somebody shy to ask somebody a question. I'm always would like to learn and start to network with people and get to know what's going on, because these are still, I always want to learn and get ahead in life. I've always been saying, I don't want to plateau wherever I am. I want to keep on learning. So it just took me from strength to strength, and I'm still learning even to this day. But I went from the Jamaica Association to another organization, Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi Côte-des-Neiges, opened up more networks for me. I'm working as an employment counselor. And then after that now, another thing is I went to the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education, because I got bitten by the bug of financial literacy and financial education. But also another side of me too, as well, is that I've always been able to keep my passion for music, the musical industry, with me on the side. So I'm able to multitask and bring all these facets of my life together, because yes, I have my professional career, but I've been fortunate to mesh my passion and my work and other aspects of my life together, which is not really the traditional role people say, they keep things separate. I've always been able to blend these things together and make it work for me, make it fit for me. I'm not the person who's always put the round peg in the round hole. I try to make things fit.
Well, I like that what you mentioned, that you got beaten by the bug, which is something really, has an impact on how did you develop your personality and your characteristic right now, and that lead you to the Canadian Foundation for Economic Education. Could you please tell us more about the CFEE?
The Canadian Foundation for Economic Education has been around since 1974. And we provide financial literacy services, financial empowerment services for all Canadians, whether it be youth in elementary schools, for seniors, new immigrants. We provide free resources. We go into schools, talking to the teachers. We do training, we do advocacy work. It's very, very important that financial literacy is, there's more awareness about it, specifically in these times that we're living in right now. And there's so much uncertainty for families and their financial health. So it's very, very important that, we do this work and get the information out there. And there are a lot of gaps that are there for people to access information. So the foundation, our role, our mandate is really to get the word out and to the people and make sure that they follow it up, because it's unfortunately that a lot of Canadians are carrying a lot of heavy debt loads. I could only understand that, have an understanding of university students, the stress of going to school, paying for education, everything is going up. I mean, you go and buy a head of lettuce, it's like $5. It's ridiculous, but things are going up. So how do you manage? How do you, manage all these stresses that come with, financial illiteracy? So that's the work that the foundation does. And it's, as I said, we've been around since 1974, just always continuing it And for me, once again, I think it's not a traditional thing. I'm not a 9-to-5 person.
Okay.
You know, I'm working on the weekends, the different facets of my life where I try to keep a balance, but I have youth that reach out to me at nighttime. I've got to deal with some seniors on the weekend because I understand that's how I'm going to best serve their needs.
Wow, that really interesting. And I guess that with your experience and being able to work more than 9 to 5 hours or from 9 to 5, will give you the ability to understand and reconnect with people from different backgrounds and social perspective, 100%. So you have been also involved, Brian, in promoting financial literacy resources to youth in Montreal for the past 7 years. And as the creator of the Money, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
the Financial Literacy Project, could you please tell us more about the project and why financial literacy for youth is something you're passionate about?
Well, the Money Financial Literacy Project was created out of a youth organization, which is the Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi Côte-Neige. For those of you who don't know, the Carrefour Jeunesse Emploi, there's about 19 of them across the city of Montreal that offer free resources for youth, regardless of you're between 16 and 35 years old. At the time, I was working as an employment counselor at the organization. And I found I'm helping these kids find jobs, but there was never anything there to say, you know what, you got your job. How do you understand your paycheck? What are taxes? All these things that come with life. So I said, you know what, let's put this project together. And, I was fortunate enough, once again, the power of networking. There was a gentleman who actually introduced me to financial literacy. His name is Casey Cosgrove. He actually passed away about 4 years ago, but he's the person, he's my mentor and why I'm actually doing what I'm doing today. And he came here for a presentation and this is what you need to do. And literally, it's basically, it's just a natural fit. If anybody who's working with youth, you need to have financial literacy talked about, promoted, share it, have a better understanding. It can apply to everybody. But from there, we then integrated a program into the Carrefour Jeunesse. We named it Money, because French, English, it was kind of catchy. And we got out there and started to get into the high schools, get into the community centers. Also, as bringing the social aspect of it, we did these large pancake breakfasts to have these large discussions with people. And what I was always looking to do, once again, having that collective approach in whatever we were doing. So it's not just the Carrefour alone. We did a pancake breakfast. I would reach out to some cooking students, so they would come on board, bringing all the different resources, get some groceries involved. They're looking for promotion. They provide us with free food. And it's just to mobilize the people together. But sometimes you have to work on convincing people to say, you know what, people are, a lot of us have been programmed to look at the individual. I look at the collective. Because one, if we're working with the collective, for me, it'll be less work, it'll be fun. And I like to work with people who are givers. In life, you have givers and you have takers. If you have takers and takers, then nothing's going to get done. And people are just going to look at each other. You have a giver and a taker, you balance it out. But if you have two givers, it's like it's a very relaxing environment. The vision is there, it's clear, and you're able to increase the capacity of what you're doing. So that's one of the things, even for myself now, a lot of the work that I'm doing, I'm not happy staying where I am. I'm always looking to see how can I exponentially increase the capacity of the work that I'm doing. And that's something that I try to instill in a lot of the community organizations that I work with, to say, you're here today, but where are you going to be 5 years from now? But what are the things you need to put into place so that your chances of success will be increased?
Wow. And you just mentioned something regarding mentors. I think we will have a separate timing, probably at the end of the discussion, to tell us more about your mentors and how they have, inspired you in your journey. But let me go back a little bit with your, support in different committees, and I believe that you're a board member of Côte d'Ivoire, Notre-Dame de Grâce Community Economic Development, and you're also a member of the Youth Entrepreneurship Selection Committee. In addition to you are acting as a host of other roles.
Yeah.
A common theme is giving back, and you mentioned giving back, and this is something really affected me right now. Why is it important to you, and how do you balance all of that, these kind of stuff?
Well, giving back is a natural thing. And, and I was thinking about it yesterday. And I think for me, I think if I was exposed to this at a very young age, that at growing up at my family home, it seems that our family home, everybody would always be coming and visiting our home on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evenings, like aunts and uncles and even their friends. So our home was like the little community center. So, and I asked my parents, why is everybody coming here? And, I guess it's more so with a Jamaican culture that, the neighborhood, everybody comes. My dad was like the Papa Bear for everybody. And it was just basically a natural thing for me. So even growing up now, I had people in my life, not necessarily family members, but people who maybe gave me something or showed me something and say, Brian, I'm giving you this because I see something in you. And I believe in elementary school, I had a teacher, his name is Mr. Eddie Nurse, very popular educator in Montreal. He's also passed on. And I remember in grade 6, he gave me this plaque. I wasn't even in this class, but he heard about me, the things I was doing in class. I was very interested in sports. And he said, I want to give this to you because I see, and I still have that plaque to this day. So there's individuals that have come into my life, and I'm saying, what, they gave back. So what, it's only fair to me now and fair to those who are around me that I give back. And it's a natural thing for me. Sometimes it's a little tough because, when people see that you're always giving, and they'll come and they'll ask, sometimes you have to say no and balance things out because, I'm older now, I have a family and things like that. But it's a natural thing. It's not something where I feel it's not stressful for me. It gives me great joy to give back. And then I see the students or the youth that I've worked with, and they come up to me, people come up to me in the street and say, Brian, thank you. Or I have a parent who remembers me and says, Brian, thank you very much for what you did. And I get emotional about it, but it's part of life because you never know who's going through what, and that you could have an effect on somebody. So somebody had an effect on me and that effect basically shaped who I am today.
Wow. Brian, I think you are a person with a huge power and with a huge energy, and giving people, it's not easy. I assume it takes a lot of energy, a lot of thinking, a lot of support. How do you manage to make a balance between giving and between living your own life?
Well, they say health is wealth, so I always, try to take care of my body, get a proper sleep, nutrition, all those type of things. As I said, I'm an old football player, so the bumps and the bruises are there. But also too, and as I said, it's, I kind of look at every day is a challenge, because even at the same time where I'm trying to do good work, specifically in the community, and there's community politics that come involved. And then you have some people ask me, why are you doing this? Why? Well, you shouldn't know why. And I say, because I can, and because I want to. So, there's the naysayers, and, those of you who have a, familiarity with, working within community organizations, the whole situation with funding and things like that. And there's this whole isolation and protectionism with organizations. But that too, I've always tried to change the mindset of organizations to say, you know what, if we want to have impacts for the people we're serving, we need to take a collective approach, not the individual approach. And that also comes into funding too at the same time, because as a grant writer too as well, the funders would like to see collective efforts to have stronger impacts, more lasting relationships and partnerships. not just to fund one organization and nothing really becomes out of it. So there needs to be this paradigm shift. And I think it's already happening, but these are things that take place. And a lot of this information I've got was just, once again, reaching out, speaking with people who have certain expertise and find out what's going on. So always being prepared, right? They always say, if you're going, whatever you do, preparation, planning leads to perfection. So we always strive for perfection, but we gotta always be prepared, and planning, very important.
Okay. Planning, putting a strategic plan, collective efforts, and paradigm shift. Those are a couple of keywords that you just mentioned. And speaking of what we have shared, our title, which is the power of community and connection.
Mhm.
I'll be moving to this theme right now because I do believe most of our audiences right now, they want to focus and know more about how the power of community and connection is important, especially we live in a world, in a modern world where there's multi-ethnicities and diverse people from different backgrounds. So let me ask you this question. You have been instrumental in developing alliances between community and nonprofit organizations, governmental agencies, private sector, business, and private foundations. Can you share how these alliances have positioned you to have a positive impact for your youth and communities at large in Montreal?
Well, here's the thing. The alliances are there, and I would say I have those individual alliances. So, I always reach out to my community partners. I reach out to governmental agency, the private sector on an individual basis. I try my best to bring all of them together at the same time when we want to, for collective efforts and project planning and development. Not always the easiest thing to do because the government, it's an institution, it moves a certain way. Private moves a certain way. Community moves a certain way. What really needs to take place, and there needs to be more discussions between all these different entities for them to function better together. And you know what we could say, and sometimes I look at it and says, you know what, it's only common sense that, there's an issue, okay, the federal government, you have the money, the community is here, private, you could get involved, but bringing all of that together is not always an easy job. And it's frustrating for me sometimes, but it's also empowering too when you actually get something done, when you create something. And a message that I would like to get out to those governmental agencies, you need to do a better job to listen to the people that you're serving. It needs to be improved upon. Because once again, government, it's traditional, slow moving, bureaucracy, private, they have a little bit more flexibility and move ahead, but sometimes they don't really know what's going on. And then you have the nonprofit entities that not necessarily have adequate funding. And sometimes there are organizations that do get a lot of funding, well organized, but I guess the term we use there, they are the gatekeepers. And these gatekeepers don't want to open up the doors for innovation and change. So once again, and we're living in a world with technology and artificial intelligence and all these type of things. So there's so many different factors going on the outside. So we have to find ways to work better. And, like in private business, you have what they call them disruptors, right? Got to be flexible, prepare for the future. So, I would really, really like the governmental agencies who do have all these, we'll call it our taxpayers' money, to work better and, their structures so that they could improve their service to the community.
Well, you seem to you have the best of both worlds, alignment of your values and with your career at the same time. But for me, do you have tips for individuals who are looking for ways to combine their passion with their work in search for more fulfillment, or do they need to? I want to know how you could provide tips in this.
I try to keep things as very basic as possible. And, volunteering or, associating yourself, get involved with groups, with people like-minded people who have the same vision, and so that you could grow and develop and share ideas. I do some acting too at the same time. I'm not a professional actor. I'm an actor. I do extra work, but I found it very, very fascinating years ago, and connect with some people, get into it. I do public speaking. I kind of fell into that. There's a lot of different things, and there is no one set way to do anything. And I always look and say, you know what? If I have an interest in something in particular, the easiest way for me is to say, you know what? Let me find out what's going on. And I guess a perfect example would be a lot of my public speaking skills just came out from me volunteering at CKUT Radio McGill. About in the late 1990s, I used to co-host a reggae show that came on in the morning. You're on the radio, you can't have any dead air, things like that. So you need to volunteer, get experience. There's so many different ways, but I always preach for people to be proactive, right? And I don't think, I would say this because of who I am. I never had anything that was really given to me, right? I see things, I have the self-confidence within myself, and I said, okay, you know what? I want something, I'm going to go for it. And sometimes you may fail, right? And some people have a fear of failure, but also there's a lot of people who have a fear of success because they don't see themselves being successful. Oh, that's not for me, that's for somebody else. Oh, I don't see people in my community doing that. Why not? People have great ideas. And I would even say myself, I used to have this fear of success, but I said, you know what? Regardless of what you do, you're always going to have the naysayers. So you know what? You do good, they're going to come after you. You do bad, they're going to come after you. So you do what you want to do. Keep your, happiness, think positive, enjoy what you're doing. And as I said, it gives, like I said, for me, it gives me great joy when I see people who I've helped be successful, because then they want to come back. They say, you know what, whatever, we want to come back. Can I give back? And you grow that way,
Wow. And you mentioned something regarding building confidence. How is that possible in an era of technology and social media and everything is exposed? How? Tell us about this.
You have to try to stay well grounded in whatever you're doing. I mean, like, as I said, it's really scary with social media, Instagram, and especially for a lot of the youth and their connections with people. Everything is virtual. And I've seen it where I've done interviews with kids face to face, not virtual, and they're so uncomfortable because they can't speak to somebody face to face. So, these are some of the things that need to be done within, I would say, first of all, if we're looking at our educational system, because once again, it's another structure that has been built. I would say maybe our educational system is dated, maybe from the 1960s and 1970s. So, and I'm more so speaking for the public school systems. They need to be adapted to the realities of the new world, right? It's happening where, preparing them for, we're talking about artificial intelligence, financial literacy, I'll come about that. And maybe we need to review what we're really teaching our kids, because, I go into high schools all the time, and I'm just trying to, have these, I would call it basic conversations with a lot of youth. And a lot of them really haven't been exposed to what's going on in the real world. And maybe it's because what they're being what they're being taught at school, it's in the curriculum, and getting things changed in the curriculum and I would say for the Ministry of Education of Quebec is not always, it's like they call it pulling hairs to get something changed. So that's why a lot of people now have gone to alternative sources of information. And, with Google, we'll call it Google University, people could have access to so many different things. But then now, how do you filter all of that out? So, it's the individual, as a student, as I said, you have to, one, educate yourself, try to filter out what's going on. Don't get caught up with social media, all these things that are going on, and really keep focused on what you want to do. Because as I said, I'm speaking for myself. I didn't have those networks when I came out of university. I had to pave my own way. I'm still paving my own way. and just trying to get ahead. So that's kind of it. Everybody has a story. My story is one of perseverance. Mine is one of challenges. I'm being still challenged each and every day. I see things in the media that's put out. We have here in the province of Quebec the whole situation with racism and discrimination, and it does weigh down on people. Even today too, there was something with the city of Pointe Claire, and there's a play that's coming out, and it bothers me. These things bother me. People that say, "Oh, it's just nothing," no, but it does weigh on people. So these are all things that it's part of being a human being. So
I'm going to touch on that, but right now, since we are in the mid of February, which
Yes,
is Black
sir.
History Month,
Yes.
what does this month means to you?
Black History Month is a month for me, basically, to recognize the contributions of Black people that are living in Canada. In Canada, what we've done. I would always say that, anybody, regardless of what race, ethnicity, gender you are, to take the time and see what are the contributions that Black people have made to Canada. But you could do that any day, any time. It doesn't just have to be Black History Month. So I don't want to say, they use the term be pigeonholed. Oh, okay, I'm only going to look at this in February and whatever the case may be. Okay, great. But, after February, life still goes on, and you could find out what the contributions have been made. I saw something too as well where the Ville de Montréal and the police, they're flying the Pan-African flag outside their offices just for February. I mean, okay, it's a symbolic thing, great, but there's a lot of the injustices that are still going on in the world here today. So, take the time, see if there's somebody, maybe, you Google somebody, you want to get some information. It's a time of learning, a time of sharing. And that's basically it.
And what are your views on the advancement of equity, diversity, and inclusion practices in our corporate spaces? You know that EDI has become a hot topic for organizations and has been on the agenda for many years. So what do you think? What will be your views?
Well, here's the situation. Since the George Floyd death or the murder, right, there was an increase. There seemed that it was like a moment where people, or we'll call it the corporate sector, felt guilty. It just happened. It's these murders and stuff like that were taking place way before that. So yes, more awareness. We need to be aware of the BIPOC communities, and there's been racism, all these type of things. But in a lot of cases, a lot of these things are symbolic. So there's still a lot of work to be done. If you speak to people who work in the corporate sector, the micro transgressions are still there. They still happen. It's not going to go away because it's all of these things are rooted, and we call them systemic. So it's built in within a culture. So it's going to take time to change. So one of the things that I always talk about is promoting financial literacy, specifically within my community too as well, is that economic empowerment is key. Because if you have economic empowerment, you have more leverage to change certain things, right? So that's something that really needs to take place. Yes, corporate, yes, even McGill University, there's been changes that have been made there, but we always need to continue to improve upon that. And it's, sometimes some institutions, they say, what, we've reached our quota, that's it, we've done what we had to do. Yeah, it looks good for the optics. But I see things I know when something is optics, and I know where there's real change. And I guess we're only really going to find out years from now where there's going to be real change. The thing is, in a lot of our government institutions, it's terrible because I look at something and say that, within the public service, the federal public service, there's a lawsuit against the government. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's something that takes place. We live in Quebec where Mr. Legault does not recognize systemic racism in our province. So these are real life things that have been done and said, and it's part of history. So for me as a Black man, I look and say, wow, this is a part of life. You wouldn't forget. It seems ridiculous, but then we're in a situation where what, it's like, what's next? What's going to take place? So
People are
it's
always
part of
going.
life, but it keeps me going, because this is something that, what, it keeps me going.
Mhm. But touch more on our title, which is the power of community and connection in advancing your career. So managing your career as a minority can be a challenging, and not all environments are supportive or inclusive. And at times, classrooms and workspaces can be a bit isolating. For example, if you are a student or a working professional and you are the only one of a particular group in the classroom, organization, or department, what kind of strategies do you suggest in helping those people build a sense of community and connection outside of their immediate environment?
Well, as I said, I think it's always important, like, as I said, to reach out and see if there are, resources within your organization, friends. I would even say for myself, I mean, I've more than likely been in a lot of situations where I'm that only one Black person. And I would say, being honest, years ago, I would like really watch what I do, watch what I say. You don't want to, I think sometimes I'm in discussions in the corporate room where I'm giving out my ideas. And sometimes I feel, what, like, are they really like acknowledging what I'm saying or what I'm doing? But then being such a goal-oriented person, when I do come now with the results and show, wow, okay, you made a change, then people look at you and say, but then you still don't even get the recognition that you feel, I don't know if you really understand, but it's like, it's terrible, because we're taught to say, what, do well, do the best you can, and you'll be judged on your results, what you're able to give, the impacts that you're making. But the structure itself is not really acknowledging you. Or sometimes, people say, you might be seen as a threat,
Okay.
and
Can
then
you
you
share
kind of like reduce, oh, you want to do well, but don't do too well, because now if you do too well, you're seen as a threat. And that's something I think a lot of BIPOC people go through. It's part of life, specifically in the corporate sector, because you have aspirations to be the best. Maybe you want to be the president, this and that. And some people say, what? And I hear it from a lot of my friends. They say, what? I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. I'm safe. And I got my job and I got my pension and all this type of stuff, but I'm not going to do any more, because the system is not willing to push you up to where you need to go.
I think you just touch on something that many people have, experienced before, like being exposed to some kind of racism or being exposed to some kind of challenge. Could you please share a particular challenge that you have faced as a Black professional, and how have you navigated the situation?
Wow. I'd say this. For some particular, I'm listening. For me, I've never really had that in your face racism where, you see something directly in your face, but I could remember something, and I remember this to this day. And I always try to find humor in things, but, as I get older now, I said, that was really messed up. I convened a meeting of financial literacy partners at the Carrefour Jeunesse. So this is maybe over 10 years ago, because once again, the whole collective spirit, we're all working in financial literacy. Let's all get together. Let's share, let's talk, let's build. And then the persons from an organization in Montreal that I won't name them, but one of the ladies came to the meeting and said to me, "You're Brian Smith? I didn't know you were Black." And as I said, well, it was an accident of birth. I just joked it off. But her colleague, you could see her head went down into her chest. It's like, so this is, like I said, 10 years ago, before, I guess we'll say, the woke era that we're in now. But these are things that you face. I mean, I remember too, once again, a young, energetic university graduate, and I went to it was then called the Protestant School Board of Greater Montreal, which is the English Montreal School Board now. And I went there with my resume, drop it in, feel proud, had my suit, tie, go there. And the person at the HR said to me, without even knowing who I am, said, "We're not hiring any more janitors."
Oh my God.
It's part of life. These things happen. So, and people say, "Are you really?" And there's so many. I mean, you know what? If you had this talk with other people of color, there would be we could do like a mini series about it. But this is the reality that and I've been stopped by the police. But I don't let those things stop me, because I've gone. I think I've grown over that. I'm over that. I know how the system works. So you just try to, some people, you just try to manage, get through the day. But it also, for a lot of people, it really kind of limits to what their full capacity. And here I am trying for them to reach their full capacity. So there's been a move, there's been a shift for some people who've decided, some friends of mine, they picked themselves up and they said, you know what, Brian? And for those of you who are listening in Africa, they've gone back to Africa because they said, you know what, we're more comfortable here. We're living in a virtual world. My business I want to do, I don't have to be in Quebec. I could be somewhere else. Wow. Those are the realities. So, whatever works for you. But, I would only hope that, as I said, and I always come back and I, even though I get funding from governmental agencies, but I always hit back at them and tell them, because certain things are not right. Things are not right. It's just, and if nobody says anything, it just perpetrates the whole situation. They say, oh, you know what? Okay, don't worry. No, we need to have changes because people are out here suffering. There are people out here doing well, but I kind of work with a lot of people who are disenfranchised, and I have to have their voice. I have to speak up for them. And I will take the battering. I've been in situations where, I have people come after me, not physically, but say, email, oh, you shouldn't be doing this and that. No, but I have to speak for the people, because if I don't speak for them, then they're not going to get their voice out. So I will keep on doing that. And I find that as I've gotten older and I have a better understanding how the system works, voicing my opinion and once again, leverage, right? Because if you have backative and you've got people around, you've got the community, and if we move in numbers, we could do things. And something that I saw from a film, I can't remember, but they said you can have a hand, right? So you have 5 fingers, and these 5 fingers can't really do much. But if you come together, you'll pack a stronger punch. You'll have more impact, more capacity building.
I really admire your support, advocacy, and enthusiasm. This is something really all the communities and all the people, should take lead of that and take it into consideration. But taking into consideration what you have just mentioned, what kind of advice you would give for groups that have faced bias and barriers to advancement and managing their careers?
You've got to persevere. It's not a bed of roses or milk and honey. You hear stories. I said, new immigrants, basically for a lot of people, it's tough out there. And we live in a global economy where you've got to be able to produce, so strategize, look at where you are in your life, your organization, where you are, and say, you know what? Okay, what am I going to do to put myself in a situation where I'm going to be successful? And that could be for the individual student, where I speak to a student. What are you going to do to prepare yourself when you go for that job interview that you're going to get the job? Because it's not just you alone. You're probably 100, 200 people. Prepare yourself. And a lot of us do not prepare. You figure, well, I'm going to try this or I'm going to try that. But yeah, I can tell when somebody's prepared for an interview or prepared in whatever they're doing. An athlete has to prepare. You can't just show up to the Olympic and say, okay, I'm going to do this. No, there's preparation, regardless of what you're doing. Somebody who's an artist, you could see when an artist has prepared his or her craft. So take the time, make sure that your skills are up to date. As I said, changing in the economy and stuff like that, changing in technology. Are you in a situation where you're flexible enough that you can get that position? So you really have to really take the time and strategy. I think as a movie buff too as well, like one of the things I watch a lot of World War I and World War II movies, and that whole thing about military and strategy and things like that. I think it's actually sunk into my brain too, how I move. And I want to get something done, and I'll speak to the person in the left and that over there, and okay, I need to speak to that person so that you're going to be successful. Right? It takes time, and it's a mindset. I'm just talking about doing something, but there's a whole process into whatever is
Behind.
being made. I have a bottle of water here. Some people just look at it as a bottle of water, but somebody had to make the cap, somebody had to get the water, get this, everything. It takes time. And that's basically with everything in the world. There's a line of production. So
Mhm.
where you are as an individual, where you are as an organization, you're just part of a production line, but where are you going to move after that?
Mhm. Brian, speaking of, we touch upon your mentors and how they have inspired you and embarking in your journey that you have right now. Our audience is made up of students, professors, undergraduates, graduate students, continuing studies, professionals who are really looking to build or advance or maybe change their careers. Who should they be building relationship with? And I am referring specifically about your leaders and mentors who have supported you both professionally or even personally in your
Mhm.
personal development.
Okay. Well, I would say this to any of the students, as I said, you've got to identify people who are in the field where you want to get to go. And I've always said, you know what? Always try to connect with somebody who's done something, because you have a lot of people who are talkers. Oh yeah, you should do this. But I've always gone to, I'm going to speak to somebody who's actually done something. Once again, people can be consultants and things like that, and see if you can develop a relationship with that person. And sometimes there are a lot of people, even people who are retired, who want to give back. So once again, making those connections. You've got a group of retired people who want to give back, share their skills. They want to learn. It keeps them young, keeps them active. Myself, though, I'll say this, my mentor from when I came back from Boston University is a woman who's actually going to be turning 99 in June. Her name is Miss Eveline Fleming. When I came back, she was the founding member of the Jamaica Association of Montreal. And from 1992, when I graduated, she took me under her wing to show me a lot more as far as the attitudes and behaviors and treating people properly. Because she's a lady who went through, she came up to Canada as a domestic from Jamaica and made her way. And she always said, Brian, you should do this, not that. Oh, how you dress, how you talk to people, treating people with respect. And treating people with respect has got me afar, because people said, well, why are you being so nice? Why are you doing this? I always show people respect. If people disrespect me and I respect them, then there's a problem. But always that whole thing with respect. So no matter how old you are, how young you are, we could all learn from each other. And that's what I've done. And I've always, as I said, carry myself properly with amounts of respect. Don't get yourself into trouble, because we live in a world right now. Somebody could point this, say you've done that. And, once again, this whole social media, cancel culture, so many different things that are out there. So how you carry yourself, respect, honesty, and just try to keep everything positive. It's very, very important. Also, too, as I said, once again, always keep those things that keep your passion. I've met people who are lawyers, who are musicians. I've met doctors who are painters. They do that because it's therapeutic. That's what they've done. And you ask them, say, if you could do this for the rest of your life, they would love to do it. But sometimes they're working in the field because of, the financials are there. Not everybody can be a painter or this and that. So it's important to keep your passions with you. And I'm saying that's for me. As I said, everybody's life, everybody's story is different, but these are recommendations that were given to me, and I followed it, and it's worked well for me.
Brian, as we are closing this discussion, and before I leave the floor to my friend Tima, what is the best career advice you have ever received?
The best career advice I've ever received was basically, whatever you choose, just make sure you're going to be the best at what you do. That means learn, give 100%. Because as I said, I guess for me, it's to say that, because nothing has ever been given to me, I've always got to make sure that I'm prepared. So today I was prepared. I got another workshop later on. I'm prepared. I got to always make sure I'm prepared because you never know what doors are going to open. So I'm even hoping now too, speaking to today on this platform, some people may reach out to me too as well and say, hey, remember the name Brian Smith, McGill University? And I almost was going to be a student at McGill University, but I got a scholarship at Boston University for football. So I turned down McGill. That was a long time ago, but you see how things work out. So, and I said, I want to thank McGill for giving me the opportunity to speak to today. It's very, very empowering. I'm very, very emotional when I talk to as well, when I'm talking about the community. And I hope the opportunity to speak to again. And any of you need to get in contact with me, I'm sure the coordinates are there. And let's make this happen. Because I said sharing, right? I'm speaking, there's like 35 people here on the live. There's much more people too as well. Share information and let it grow exponentially. Let it go viral.
And they say sharing is caring always.
That's right.
Brian Smith, Vice President of Canadian Foundation for Economic Education. Thank you very much for being with us today. And I'm gonna move the floor to my friend Tima to open the Q&A if anyone would like to ask question. Tima?
All right, so I just want to say thank you, Brian. Thank you, Osman. Thank you, audience members. It's been a pleasure being with you all today. I'd like to start off again by thanking Brian for your time, your pearls of wisdom. It's really insightful knowing that you went from a non-traditional trajectory beyond a 9-to-5, encompassing this collaborative, collective spirit that attracted givers, and speaking for the people that you represent, as well as working with organizations to exponentially help them keep their organizations more sustainable over the years. And ultimately, a lot of these stories shaped you and brought you here today, right? Even if you weren't a McGill alum, you are a McGill honoree tonight, right? So I also want to thank Osman for your excellent moderating skills and this being part of this powerful conversation with us. And to our audience, thank you so much for your engagement. I can see amazing comments in the chat box, and we hope that your lunch was fruitful. We left you with some food for thought, and may you continue to celebrate Black History Month beyond the month of February and Black Stories. And so please, this is your chance to shine, everyone. Please let me hear your questions. We'd love to hear from you.
I guess I'll go if nobody starts. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Thank you so much for this session. It's been incredible. I have written in the chats that every single word you're saying is incredible. And it's very powerful and impactful. I don't think I have a question, but mainly just wanted to share something that everything you said resonates with me in my personal life so much. By my name, you can say I'm an immigrant here to Canada. I've been living here for 7 years. And a lot of your experiences is something that I went through as well. And even if my color is not as yours, right? So, but I cannot stress enough also the importance of educating the children. Pretty much like you, I have studied under a completely different system. And my kids right now study under the Quebecois system. Mm-hmm. So I have always had this lifelong thought in my head that, to me, like, my natural inclination rather would say that I do not see the color of the person, but rather who the person is and what they achieve and what they do in work. So for my kids, what I have set as a lifelong goal is to educate them. Finance is a huge part for me, and educate them on things that the school doesn't teach them. It's how to be a person. It's how to be respectful towards another. It's how to persevere, because I don't know, these are so important things, but I don't know why we're not taught how to persevere.
Yeah, there are so many different things. And I think if you Google it, like if you look at the real world, what's taking place in the real world, and some of the things that are taught in school, there are a lot of things that are not being taught in school that should be taught in the real world. And, financial literacy, they're just catching up, but there's so many different things. And even something very, very basic. I know that when I was in high school, we used to have like a cooking class, right? I would be able to make your Thai, cook food, do this and that. That's not taking place anymore. So kids can't prepare meals. So they're going out, eating fast food, unhealthy, bad for their health. Some of the, we'll call it basic skills in life. we're not teaching our kids that. So if they're not getting it at home, then where are they getting it from? So, it's just,
Exactly.
and these are very small things, but it's, I don't think it's very, call it sexy to say, what, oh, we're going to have a cooking school and this back, a lot of the things, and not to get away, but there's a lot of jobs and opportunities for students who want to go into the trades, and
Exactly.
more or less, they're not very promoted as much as before. But if you're somebody who like to work with your hands, there's a lot of opportunities that are there. And I have a lot of friends who started up home renovation businesses because they like working with their hands, but they were told in high school, oh, well, oh, you're in a special, no, far from it. So we're living in a world that's changing so fast. So you've got to be flexible.
Mhm.
Yeah, 1,000,000% agree. And honestly, I'm trying to take this rather serious, my beliefs, I'm trying to take these into my workplace as well, and trying, I guess, to influence a little bit with the same beliefs. Oh God, okay, I'm getting emotional, so like I lost my
There we
train of
go.
thought
Hey,
here
we
on-
struck a chord. We struck a
Yeah.
chord. We struck a chord.
You did. It genuinely was very, very powerful. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you, Ina, for that. And we have a question from Linda.
Thank you so much, Brian, for such a nice presentation. And thank you, Osman. That was an amazing job. One thing that you mentioned that I really liked is that you have to have respect for other people. It really matters how you treat people, regardless of your background, whether you're African or, from the USA, regardless of the, color of your skin. But then again, that when you are treated disrespectfully, it becomes something else.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that you went to school, you got a scholarship at Boston because you were in sports.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of Black people have received this kind of sponsorship, when their sportsmanship is recognized and they get scholarships to go study abroad. But not abroad, sorry. I'm saying abroad because I'm from Africa, but to go to universities. But I also do believe that there's so many Black women and men out there, or other Black people that are very academically gifted, and that they can be able to excel, in institutions of higher learning, regardless of their, sports abilities. And perhaps this has not been, has not manifested because of, various reasons, such as, systemic racism, in the absence of mentorship.
Yeah. Well,
And,
one of the things as far as with the athletics, right? Because and I'm speaking more so from the American perspective, that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So universities will give out scholarships to get the best athletes so that they can come to school, so that they could have a winning program, so that they could get money and be on TV and things like that. So it's a total business, 100%. As far as with the whole academic side, that is also very, very valid, but the system is not set up to say, you know what, we're going to be giving out all this money to bring in all of these academics and stuff like that, because it's not producing revenue, and everything is revenue produced. And that's just the way the college system works in the United States for basketball and for football. Those are money generating. You have coaches who make much more money than the presidents of the schools. And there's a reason behind that, because they're bringing in revenue. So, it's not the best system, but, and that there too, there's a lot of changes that are going on right now, because the athletes now are able to start to even make some money from their likeness and their image. Because if you're a superstar athlete and everybody's buying your jersey, now students now can get some money from sponsorships and things like that. But once again, too, some people figure out, is that really fair? Because everybody should be college now. You should be an amateur athlete and making money. And there's a lot of things that are changing. But something that was been highly unfair is that the students have really been manipulated over the years in the American college system. And I could say that because I lived that experience, and it's not always the easiest thing where, you've got students who, yes, you're great on the football field, but you don't have any money in your pocket because you're not legally allowed to work as a student athlete. So a lot of changes that need to take place.
All right, but if I may go to my question, clearly there's a lack of representation, especially amongst the students' body. There's not a lot of, Black students in institutions of higher learning. And thankfully, a lot of schools are now beginning to speak about it, especially with the ADI initiatives. So in your opinion, what do you think is the place of universities, or rather what are some of the steps universities can take in order to tap into these brilliant minds in the Black communities?
Oh, well, you know what? There needs to be a system put in place to ensure that the universities get the students in. I mean, here's something as far as even with McGill University, I know that they even have a project in place for here in Montreal where they're doing outreach into the high schools and into the CEGEPs and even into the elementary schools to ensure that there's a pipeline of students that are coming, that are going to get into McGill. So once again, too, we're talking about institutions, we're talking about culture, ways of things have been done. So, and at the end, the decision is going to come from the top. So, you got to kind of put the pressure in the right spots to make sure that the change is going to take place. And sometimes you're going to come up against, we'll call it the institution and the way that people do things, but you've always got to keep poking the bear, they call it, keep making sure you're going to be successful. And sometimes too, it's going to be uncomfortable because, we're talking about racism, and you cannot put a Band-Aid over racism. Sometimes, if you look at racism, it's a cut. So you got to open up that cut, you got to clean it, you got to put whatever alcohol in it, it's going to sting, right? And then you got to leave it out to air so that it could dry up. But if we keep on putting Band-Aids over situations, it just continues to fester. So as I said, it's for those who are in the decision-making positions. They need to get they need to change their ways.
Thank you, Brian. Our next question is from Eliana.
Hello, Brian. Thank you very much for inspiring presentation, and thank you for wonderful terminology as a given person, as a giver, as a given community. Well, my question is about children, young generation. So do you think that the coming generation is more open and is more versatile and flexible in terms of accepting people of different races, of different backgrounds, of different cross-cultural backgrounds? My question comes out of my personal experience. I was born in Central Asia, and till I turned 7, I didn't even realize that people speak different languages, because I was born in a multilingual, multi-ethnical and multi-confessional community. And only in school I was told that languages are different, that people do not speak different languages, because when I was a kid, I spoke 4 languages, but I thought that it was one language. Right now I speak 8 languages, but it's all about my profession. My son, when he came here, we came here in Montreal 3 years ago, he spoke 4 languages, and he refreshed his French and his English. And I talked to him about his new friends and his new community. And it was so nice for me to hear that he was talking about his new friend. His name was Majali. And he asked my son about Majali's family and about Majali's nationality. And my son was surprised because he didn't remember. And he asked me if it was really important, the nationality. Well, I'm observing right now this very common generation. My son is 19 right now. I'm observing this new generation coming, that they are not, that they do not remember your color, that they do not remember your nationality, but they remember something else, which is superhuman. And probably around in your personal experience, because you've talked about your work with kids, with children, have you observed anything of the kind, that they do not care? I mean, in a positive way.
I wouldn't say that the kids don't care. Something that, I mean, I've noticed just and being in elementary and high schools, I just see that kids are, I would say the word I'm looking for, have been programmed like robots. And this is not in a bad thing, but I just see it within the public system where, you know, not thinking for themselves. They're just like, we're going to do this just to conform. And they've lost a sense of their individualism, you know? So once again, living in a world, I don't know where your influences are coming from, but I'm in a high school and, you know, I'm asking the kids the question and everybody's like looking at everybody else, and to think outside of the box is something that's not really promoted, because, you know, you don't want to be looked at as the outsider, you know, in those ways, you know, it's
I
so,
see that.
but and critical thinking, I think that's very, very important, that we have to always encourage people to be critical thinkers, that if there's something that you're not in agreement with, ask a question. Why is it that way? You know, it's very, very important, and to feel that you could express yourself in a safe space, because whether it be me, where, as I said, you know, when I left university, I was not in those safe spaces, right? I had to, you know, oh, no, now's not the time. You don't want to upset the way things are. So, you know, and until we get to that where people really feel safe to express themselves, I think there we're going to start to see some real change or some other changes.
Do you think that teaching different languages with the same value, I mean, underlying the same value of your national language, your mother tongue, your any language that you're studying, adds value? Because
I think the more languages you speak, the better it is. I mean, I'm not a linguistics person, but I mean, if you're able to express yourself in more than 1, 2, 3, hey, that's a great thing, because it just allows you. You're more marketable. You could communicate with people. If you can't communicate with people, then you kind of shut off. So that would be I would encourage that. And I guess, you know, if my son was speaking 4 languages, hey, that would be great. He's just trying to master English right now.
Yeah, in fact, my son got his first job here at Zara, because during his interview job, when an HR asked him about his prose, he answered that he's equally friendly and sociable in 4 languages. It was a key answer, and he was accepted immediately.
Okay. Wow,
Great.
That's nice. Well,
thank you very much, Brian. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Aliona, for these questions. Thank you, everyone. Alors, c'est donc la fin de notre webinaire aujourd'hui. This is the end of our webinar. Once again, merci beaucoup, merci tellement, Brian, for those kind and wise words. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us in this great discussion. I genuinely hope that you have enjoyed it. And for more information, again, and details about McGill upcoming events, please do follow our pages shown in the chat bar: CATS McGill, Maces, Equity at McGill University. Thank you so much for that. I wish you all the best.